The automatic doors of Mercy General Hospital slid open at 5:42 a.m., the way they always did, quietly, without ceremony. Yet something about the sound made every head in the lobby turn at once. It wasn't just the doors. It was the way the air shifted, as if the building itself had inhaled sharply and forgotten how to exhale. A German shepherd stood just inside the entrance. He was large, broad-chested, his coat soaked dark with rain and streaked with mud. Water dripped from his fur onto the polished tile floor, forming small puddles that spread like ink stains. His ears were upright, alert, and his amber eyes scanned the lobby with unsettling intelligence. He didn't look lost. He didn't look afraid. He looked focused. Conversation died mid-sentence. A receptionist froze with her hand hovering over the keyboard. A pair of interns stopped walking, coffee cups trembling slightly. The security guard near the metal detector instinctively straightened, one hand lowering toward his radio, but he didn't move past that. No one did. The dog took 3 deliberate steps forward. His nails clicked sharply against the tile, the sound echoing far louder than it should have in the early morning quiet. Around his chest was strapped a red medical pouch, secured tightly with black buckles. It was scuffed, wet, and unmistakably stained with dried blood. "No way," someone whispered. Mercy General had seen its share of strange things: overdoses dropped at the curb, psych patients wandering off elevators, relatives collapsing from grief in hallways, but this was different. This wasn't chaos. This was intention. The German shepherd stopped at the exact center of the lobby, directly beneath the flickering fluorescent light. He sat. Perfect posture, back straight, head high. Then he whined. It was a low, strained sound. Not fear, not pain, but urgency. The kind of sound that made the skin along your arms prickle and your chest tighten without you understanding why. "Is that a service dog?" an intern murmured. "He doesn't have a handler," another replied. The security guard cleared his throat. "Hospital policy says animals aren't." The dog barked once. Not aggressive, not loud, just enough. The guard stopped speaking. At the nurse's station, charge nurse Elena Morris slowly set down the chart she had been reviewing. She had worked emergency medicine for 15 years. She learned to recognize the difference between panic and purpose, between noise and meaning. Something in the dog's posture, his stillness, set off an alarm deep in her instincts. "Don't rush him," she said quietly, her voice carrying farther than she expected. "He's not here by accident." The dog's gaze shifted to her immediately. Locked on. Elena felt a chill crawl up her spine. She stepped out from behind the desk, moving carefully, palms open at her sides. Around her, the lobby felt frozen in time. No phones rang. No carts rolled. Even the HVAC hum seemed muted. Up close, she could see more details. The dog's breathing was controlled but fast. His flank trembled slightly with each inhale. His fur was matted near the hind legs, darker there, not just rain. Blood, fresh and old, mixed together. "Elena," the receptionist whispered, "should I call animal control?" Elena didn't answer. She crouched a few feet away, lowering herself to the dog's level. "Hey, boy," she said softly. "It's okay, you're safe here." The dog didn't move toward her. He didn't back away either. Instead, he leaned forward just enough to nudge the red pouch with his nose, pushing it toward her knees. Elena swallowed. Up close, the pouch looked heavier than it should have been. The zipper teeth were bent slightly, as if forced closed in a hurry. Tied to one strap was a small piece of cardboard, the edges soaked and curling. She reached for it. Her fingers brushed the surface, and she flinched at the tacky feel of dried blood. Carefully, she lifted the tag and turned it over. 3 words, written in shaky black marker, stared back at her. "Please help us." A murmur rippled through the lobby. "Oh my God. Is this real?" Elena, maybe wait for. Before anyone could stop her, Elena slowly unzipped the pouch. Inside was chaos. A tiny sock, no bigger than her palm, soaked deep red. An ultrasound photo, creased and water-damaged, showing the unmistakable outline of a developing baby. A folded piece of paper with smeared ink she couldn't yet read. And beneath it all, a smartphone wrapped in a plastic sandwich bag, the screen still lit. It vibrated in her hand. Once, twice. The lock screen displayed a single notification banner. Incoming message. The dog whined again, louder this time, rising from his chest like a warning. "Elena," the security guard said, finally lifting his radio. "We need to." The dog stood abruptly. The sudden movement made several people jump. His chair scraped loudly against the tile as he spun toward the doors, then back toward Elena, eyes wide and burning with urgency. He barked again, twice, sharp, commanding. Then he ran. Straight for the exit. "Wait," Elena shouted. The automatic doors slid open again, letting in a blast of cold rain and wind. The dog disappeared into the gray morning without hesitation, without looking back. For half a second, no one moved. Then the phone in Elena's hand buzzed again. She looked down at the screen. A message preview appeared beneath the notification banner, just long enough for her to read 6 words. "I can't feel my legs anymore." Elena's heart slammed into her ribs. "Call security," she snapped, already moving. "Call an ambulance team now." "Where are you going?" someone yelled. Elena broke into a run. She didn't answer. She didn't slow down. She burst through the doors just as rain soaked her scrubs and the cold bit through her skin. Ahead of her, through the blur of water and headlights, she saw the German Shepherd sprinting across the parking lot, glancing back only once, as if checking whether she had chosen correctly. She raised the phone to her ear as she ran, thumb fumbling to unlock it. The screen shifted. A video began to play. And as Elena watched the terrified face of a young woman flicker to life on the screen, she realized with sickening clarity that the dog hadn't come to the hospital for help. He had come because time had already run out. Rain blurred the world into streaks of gray as Elena ran, her shoes slipping slightly on the slick pavement. The phone vibrated again in her hand, demanding attention she couldn't fully give while trying not to lose sight of the dog. The German Shepherd moved fast, faster than any injured animal should, cutting through the parking lot with a certainty that bordered on impossible. "Elena, wait," someone shouted behind her. She didn't turn around. The video on the phone continued playing, the young woman's face shaking as the camera wobbled. She couldn't have been older than 25. Her skin was pale, lips tinged blue, dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. "If you're seeing this," the woman whispered, struggling to breathe, "please, I couldn't call, there's no signal. He knows where to go, please just follow him." The video ended abruptly. Elena's stomach dropped. Ahead, the dog reached the edge of the lot and veered sharply left, toward the street that ran behind the hospital. Traffic was light but fast, early commuters, delivery trucks cutting through the rain. Without slowing, the Shepherd sprinted straight toward it. "Don't," Elena shouted, terror ripping through her chest. The dog darted between 2 cars with inches to spare. Horns blared. Tires screeched. One driver rolled down his window and yelled something Elena couldn't hear over the rain. She hesitated for half a heartbeat at the curb, her instincts screaming at her to stop. Then she stepped into the road. Cold water soaked her socks instantly. She ran harder, ignoring the shouts, the horns, the disbelief in every passing face. By the time she reached the other side, her lungs burned and her heart felt too big for her chest. The dog was already disappearing down a narrow service road behind the hospital, one most people didn't even know existed. Elena, a security guard, finally caught up, breathless, rain dripping off his cap. "You can't just..." "Call an ambulance," she snapped, waving the phone. Tell them to follow my location. There's a woman in trouble, pregnant, bleeding. I don't know where she is yet, but this dog does." The guard stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Then the phone buzzed again. A new message appeared. "Location shared, live." The blue dot pulsed on the screen, jittering slightly, as if even the signal itself was struggling to stay alive. The dog barked sharply from ahead, impatient. Elena ran again. The service road narrowed into something barely wider than a sidewalk, bordered by chain-link fence on one side and overgrown brush on the other. Rainwater pooled in deep ruts, soaking her pants to the knees. The hospital lights faded behind them, replaced by the dull orange glow of distant street lamps. The shepherd slowed slightly, just enough for Elena to keep up. She noticed then how uneven his gait was, how one hind leg dragged just a fraction of a second longer than the others. "You're hurt," she muttered, breathless. "You shouldn't be running." The dog glanced back at her, eyes sharp. He didn't stop. The phone buzzed again. This time it rang. Elena answered without thinking. "Hello." A weak gasp filled her ear. "Please," the woman whispered. "Is he with you?" "Yes," Elena said immediately. "Yes, he's with me. We're coming, stay awake." "I'm scared," the woman said. "There's so much blood. I tried to walk, but my legs," her voice broke. "I didn't know what else to do. I told him to go. I told him to find help." "You did the right thing," Elena said, forcing calm into her voice. "What's your name?" "Marissa," she whispered. "I'm 28 weeks. It's too early." Elena's chest tightened. "Where are you, Marissa?" Under the overpass," she said slowly. "The car died. I can't feel my hands." Elena looked up. Ahead, the service road dipped downward into darkness. The roar of traffic grew louder, echoing off concrete. An overpass. The dog suddenly barked again, longer this time, the sound carrying urgency and something else, fear. Elena slid to a stop at the top of the slope. Below them, half hidden by shadows and rain, was a sedan angled awkwardly against the curb. Water surrounded it, rising steadily, flowing fast. One headlight flickered weakly, then died. "Oh no," Elena breathed. She ran downhill, nearly slipping twice before catching herself on the fence. The water was ankle-deep now, ice-cold, numbing instantly. The dog splashed ahead, ignoring the pain that must have been screaming through his body. "Marissa," Elena shouted, "I'm here." A faint knock answered her, from inside the car. She reached the driver's side window and peered in. Marissa was slumped sideways in the seat, her face slick with sweat, eyes half-lidded. Her hands were pressed between her legs, blood visible even in the low light. "Oh God," Elena whispered. Another contraction hit, and Marissa cried out, her body tensing violently. The sound echoed under the overpass, swallowed by rain and traffic above. "I can't stop it," Marissa sobbed. "I tried, I swear I tried." "It's okay," Elena said, forcing herself into motion. She waded deeper into the water, grabbing the door handle. It didn't budge. The dog jumped onto the hood, paws slipping on wet metal, barking furiously. He pressed his weight down, growling at the door as if daring it to open. "Elena, help me," Marissa begged weakly. Elena tried again, bracing her foot against the frame. The door popped open with a metallic groan, sending water sloshing inside. Elena climbed halfway in, ignoring the cold, the blood, the fear pounding in her ears. "I'm here," she said, gripping Marissa's hand. "You're not alone." The dog leapt into the back seat, curling awkwardly against the seat, his chest heaving. Up close, Elena saw how badly he was bleeding from his side, fur matted and dark. "You did this," she whispered to him. "You saved her." Another contraction slammed through Marissa, stronger than before. She screamed, nails digging into Elena's arm. "Elena," a voice called from far away, security finally catching up. "Where are you?" "Down here," Elena shouted back. Bring blankets, bring everything." She looked back at Marissa just as the woman gasped, eyes wide with sudden terror. "Elena," she whispered, "something's wrong." Elena followed her gaze. Between Marissa's legs, the unmistakable sign appeared far too soon. The baby was coming. And there was no stopping it now. Elena's mind went unnervingly quiet. It was the same stillness she'd felt during mass casualty incidents, during codes that stretched on far too long, when panic had no place and instinct took over. The baby was coming. Too early, too fast, and there was no delivery room, no equipment, no backup. Just a flooding roadway beneath an overpass and a woman whose body was giving out. "Marissa," Elena said firmly, locking eyes with her, "I need you to listen to me." Marissa shook her head weakly, tears streaming sideways into her hair. "I can't do this. I can't." "Yes, you can," Elena said, "and you will, but not alone." The German shepherd shifted in the back seat, whimpering softly. His sides fluttered with shallow breaths. Elena reached back and pressed her hand against his neck for a brief second, warm, solid, alive. "Stay with us, boy," she murmured. "We need you." The dog's ears twitched. His eyes never left Marissa. Another contraction tore through her without warning. Her scream echoed violently under the concrete, bouncing back at them from all directions. Elena braced herself against the seat, letting Marissa crush her hand. "Don't push yet," Elena said, feeling useless even as she said it. "Just breathe, short breaths, in through your nose, out through your mouth." "I can't stop it," Marissa cried. "It's pushing by itself." Elena knew she was right. Preterm labor didn't wait for permission. She glanced around, assessing. The water outside the car was rising fast, swirling with debris. Traffic thundered overhead, oblivious. The security guard's flashlight flickered briefly at the top of the slope, too far, too slow. "Elena," he shouted again, "ambulance is 4 minutes out." 4 minutes might as well have been an hour. Elena pulled off her jacket and shoved it beneath Marissa's hips, trying to elevate her slightly. She took a steadying breath and positioned herself as best she could in the cramped space. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay. When the next contraction comes, don't fight it. Let your body do what it needs to do." Marissa's eyes widened in terror. "The baby's going to die." "No," Elena said more forcefully than she felt. "Not today." The dog let out a low, steady growl, not aggressive but protective. Elena realized he was staring at the passing headlights beyond the windshield, teeth barely visible. He was guarding them. Another contraction hit. "Now," Marissa screamed. Elena moved instantly. The world narrowed to blood, rain, breath. The baby crowned far too quickly, delicate skin stretched and trembling. Elena's hands shook despite her training. She forced them steady, supporting gently, whispering encouragement she barely remembered. "That's it," she said. "That's it, you're doing it." Marissa sobbed, her body racked with pain and fear. "Please don't let me die." "You're not going to die," Elena said, though the words tasted like a lie she refused to believe. With one final, broken cry, Marissa pushed, and the baby slipped into Elena's hands. Too small. Too light. For a terrifying second, there was nothing. No cry, no movement. Elena's heart dropped through her chest. "Come on," she whispered, rubbing the tiny chest gently, tapping the soles of the feet the way she'd been taught years ago. "Come on, little one." Marissa watched, eyes glassy with horror. Why isn't he crying? Elena didn't answer. She couldn't. The dog whimpered loudly, shifting forward, his nose reaching toward the baby. His tail thumped weakly against the seat, once, twice, as if urging life forward. "Breathe," Elena whispered, "please." Seconds stretched, thick and suffocating. Then a sound. Thin, fragile. A cry. Elena laughed and cried at the same time, pressing the baby briefly against Marissa's chest. "He's here," she said. "He's alive." Marissa sobbed in relief. her body sagging back against the seat. But the moment didn't last. Blood kept coming. Too much. Alina's training screamed at her postpartum hemorrhage. Dangerous, fast. Stay with me, Marissa, Alina said, applying pressure, her voice sharp now. Look at me, stay awake. I'm so tired, Marissa murmured. Her eyelids fluttered. No, Alina snapped, fear spiking. No, you stay with me. Outside, the sound of sirens finally grew louder, cutting through the rain. The security guard's flashlight beam bounced wildly as he splashed closer. Help is here, Alina shouted, relief flooding her chest. Then Marissa's hand went limp in hers. Elena, the guard called, what's going on? Elena looked down. Marissa's eyes were open but unfocused. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. No, 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 Elena whispered. She increased pressure, calling her name again and again. The dog suddenly barked sharply, then collapsed sideways in the back seat with a pained yelp. Elena, the guard said, panic creeping into his voice as he reached the car. The dog, he's bleeding bad. Elena looked back and felt her stomach drop. The German shepherd's breathing was ragged now, blood pooling beneath him, mixing with rainwater on the floor. Sirens screamed closer. Elena was surrounded by 3 lives hanging in the balance, and she could only choose where to put her hands first. She swallowed hard, knowing whatever decision she made next would haunt her forever. The first ambulance screamed onto the service road like a lifeline ripped out of the dark. Red and blue lights bounced wildly off the concrete pillars of the overpass, painting the flooded roadway in violent color. Doors flew open. Boots hit water. Elena, a paramedic, shouted, "Where?" "Here," she yelled back, her voice raw. "Pregnant female, postpartum hemorrhage, preterm infant, and the dog, he's critical." For half a second, the paramedics froze, overwhelmed by the impossible scene. Then training kicked in. 2 medics splashed toward the car, equipment held high. Another team rushed past them toward the German shepherd, who lay barely conscious in the back seat, chest rising in shallow, uneven bursts. "Ma'am, I need you to step back," one medic said to Elena, already reaching for Marissa. "I'm not leaving her," Elena snapped. "You won't," he replied calmly, "but we need space." Elena reluctantly shifted aside as they slid Marissa carefully onto a backboard. Blood soaked the blankets instantly. "BP's dropping," a medic said. "She's crashing." "Start fluids," another shouted. The baby let out a weak cry from Elena's arms, a sound so fragile it barely cut through the chaos. A NICU transport nurse appeared beside her, eyes widening at the infant's size. 28 weeks, the nurse asked. "Yes," Elena said. "He breathed on his own, barely." "That's enough," the nurse said firmly. "That's enough to fight." They wrapped the baby in warming blankets, tiny fingers curling reflexively as if gripping life itself. "Elena," someone yelled again, "the dog." She turned just as the veterinary emergency unit, called in by dispatch after confused, frantic reports, pulled in behind the ambulances. A vet tech splashed forward, dropping to her knees beside the shepherd. "He's hypothermic," the tech said urgently. "Shallow breathing, possible internal bleeding." The dog's eyes flickered open when Elena knelt beside him. "Hey," she whispered, stroking his soaked fur. "You did it, you hear me, you did your job." His tail thumped weakly once. Then stopped. "He's fatting," the vet said. "We need to move him now." They lifted him carefully onto a stretcher made for humans, his weight heavier than Elena expected, solid, powerful even now. As they wheeled him away, Elena noticed something she hadn't seen before. The red pouch. It was torn open at the side. A folded paper slipped out and landed in the water. "Elena," the security guard called, "we're moving." "Wait," she said, grabbing the paper before it soaked through completely. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, rushed, but legible. My name is Marissa Cole. If you find this, please help my baby. Atlas knows where to go. He always protects us. He was hit by a car when he ran for help. Please don't let him die alone." Elena's throat closed. "Atlas." She looked up just as they loaded the dog into the veterinary ambulance. His head lolled slightly to the side, eyes half open, unfocused. But when Elena called his name, his ears twitched. "You're not alone," she said, voice breaking. "I promise." The doors slammed shut. The convoy pulled away, 2 ambulances toward Mercy General, lights blazing, sirens tearing through the rain. Elena stood alone under the overpass for a moment, soaked, shaking, adrenaline crashing through her veins. Then she ran. The emergency room exploded into motion the moment the ambulances arrived. Massive hemorrhage incoming. NICU on standby. Clear the trauma bay. Marissa was rushed straight into surgery. Elena caught a glimpse of her pale face as they wheeled her past, eyes closed, lips barely moving. "Tell her baby's okay," Marissa whispered faintly as they passed. "I will," Elena promised. "You tell him yourself." The promise echoed in her mind as doors slammed shut. The baby, Atlas James, though no one knew his name yet, was rushed to the NICU. Tubes, wires, machines surrounded him within seconds. His chest fluttered rapidly beneath the ventilator mask, skin translucent and fragile. "He's fighting," the nurse said quietly. "Stubborn little guy." Elena let out a shaky breath. Then she turned and ran again, this time down the hall toward veterinary emergency, a wing Mercy General rarely used. They were already working on Atlas. The dog lay on a steel table, fur shaved in places, IV lines snaking into his leg. His chest rose and fell mechanically now, oxygen hissing softly. "Internal bleeding from blunt force trauma," the vet said as Elena approached. "Likely hit by a vehicle. He ran a long way on adrenaline." "Can you save him?" Elena asked. The vet hesitated. "We're trying." Minutes stretched into an hour. Elena sat against the wall, still in wet scrubs, hands stained with blood that wasn't hers. She replayed every moment, the doors opening, the pouch, the message, the choice to follow. If she'd waited. A nurse approached quietly, "Surgery update." Elena stood instantly. The nurse's expression was unreadable. Marissa made it through surgery. She lost a lot of blood, but she's stable for now. Elena sagged against the wall in relief. "And the baby?" "In critical condition, but alive." Elena nodded, tears slipping free at last. "What about the dog?" she asked, barely above a whisper. The nurse looked past her, toward the operating room. "They're closing him now," she said, "but he coded once on the table." Elena's heart stuttered. "Did they get him back?" The nurse paused, then nodded slowly, "For now." Elena slid down the wall, burying her face in her hands. Hours later, dawn broke over Mercy General, pale and quiet. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean and eerily calm. The vet finally stepped out, removing her gloves. Elena stood. "He's alive," the vet said, "but he's not out of danger, severe blood loss, organ stress. He pushed himself far past what any animal should." Elena let out a sob of relief. "Can I see him?" The vet nodded. Atlas lay still, bandaged, breathing slow and shallow. His chest rose with effort. Machines beeped softly around him. Elena took his paw gently in both hands. "You hear that?" she whispered. "They're alive, both of them. You did that." Atlas's eyes fluttered open briefly. He looked at her. Then faintly, his tail moved. Elena smiled through tears. But behind her, unseen, one of the monitors dipped suddenly, just enough to make a sharp warning tone sound. And every person in the room froze, realizing the fight wasn't over yet. The warning tone cut through the room like a blade. Sharp, relentless. Alina's smile vanished as she snapped her head toward the monitor. Atlas's heart rate dipped again, slow, uneven, fighting gravity. The vet was already moving, hands steady but urgent, calling out numbers Alina didn't want to understand. Pressure's dropping, the vet said. He's bleeding again. Alina's fingers tightened around Atlas's paw. It felt warmer than before, alive but weak, too weak. Can you stop it? Alina asked, adding the tremor in her voice. We can try, the vet replied honestly. But his body's exhausted. Adrenaline carried him this far. There's not much left to give. The words landed heavy. Alina leaned closer to Atlas's head. His ears twitched faintly, as if he heard her. She lowered her voice, instinctively doing what she did for patients hovering between worlds. You ran through traffic, she whispered. Through rain, through pain. You did everything right. You don't have to keep running. Atlas's eyes opened just a slit. For a moment, Alina could swear there was recognition there. Not fear, not confusion, purpose. The same look he'd had in the lobby, sitting perfectly still beneath the flickering light. I'll stay, she said quickly, as if bargaining with fate. I'm not going anywhere. The vet glanced at her, then nodded once. Talk to him, she said. It doesn't hurt. Across the hospital, the NICU hummed with a different kind of urgency. Atlas James lay inside an incubator, no bigger than a loaf of bread, skin translucent under soft blue light. Tubes ran into his mouth, his chest rising in quick, shallow movements that made every nurse tense. Heart rate steady, the NICU nurse said quietly. Oxygen's borderline but holding. Marissa lay one floor above, unconscious but alive, machines breathing and pumping for her. A nurse sat by her bed, watching vitals climb slowly back toward normal. Her body's fighting, the nurse murmured to another. She's stubborn. The word echoed through the building. Stubborn. Back in veterinary emergency, Atlas's monitor beeped again, lower this time. Alina felt it before she saw it, a heaviness, a pull. No, she whispered. The vet's hands moved faster. Come on, boy, she said under her breath. Stay with me. Atlas's breathing stuttered. Then stopped. The monitor screamed. Code, the vet shouted. Now. The room exploded into motion. Chest compressions began immediately, careful, precise. Medications were drawn up. Oxygen was forced. Time fractured into seconds that felt like hours. Alina stood frozen at the foot of the table, heart pounding so hard it hurt. She'd seen this scene hundreds of times with humans, but this felt worse. Somehow more personal, more cruel. Again, the vet said, clear. They shocked him. Atlas's body jolted. Nothing. Again. Another shock. Still nothing. Alina's hands shook violently. Tears blurred her vision. Please, she whispered, not sure who she was begging anymore. Please don't take him. The vet checked the monitor, jaw tight. Time, she said quietly. Silence filled the room. The monitor flattened into a single, merciless line. Alina felt something break inside her. She stepped forward without thinking and placed her hand over Atlas's chest, ignoring the startled looks. I know this isn't protocol, she said, voice breaking, but he understands. The vet hesitated, then nodded. Alina leaned down until her forehead touched Atlas's. His fur was still damp, still warm. They're alive, she whispered fiercely. The mother, the baby, they're alive because of you. You did your job, you can rest now. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a blip. A single beat. The monitor chirped weakly. Wait, the vet said sharply. I've got something. Another beat followed, slow, fragile. Resume support, the vet ordered, now. They moved instantly, disbelief crackling through the room. The line on the monitor wavered, then climbed, just enough to give hope. Alina laughed through sobs. collapsing back against the wall as Atlas's chest began to rise again, shallow but real. "He heard you," the vet said softly. "I don't care what anyone says, he heard you." Hours passed. Morning shifted into afternoon. News of the dog spread through Mercy General like electricity. Nurses slipped in quietly to check on him. Doctors paused longer than necessary. Even the janitor stood for a moment, cap in hand, before moving on. "Did you hear?" someone whispered in the hallway. "That dog saved a premature baby. And the mom." And he ran himself almost to death. A reporter called, then another. Administration tried to keep things contained, but stories leaked anyway. Photos from security cameras surfaced online. A muddy German shepherd sitting calmly in a hospital lobby, red pouch on his chest. The internet caught fire. In the ICU, Marissa's fingers twitched. A nurse leaned forward instantly. "Marissa." Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first. "My baby," Marissa whispered hoarsely. "Is he?" "He's alive," the nurse said gently. "He's fighting." Tears slipped down Marissa's temples. "Atlas." The nurse blinked. "How did you?" "That's his name," Marissa whispered. "The dog Atlas." The nurse swallowed. "He's still alive too." Marissa let out a shaky breath. "Good," she murmured. "He kept his promise." Back in veterinary emergency, Atlas slept under sedation, his breathing steadier now but far from safe. The vet adjusted the IV, watching the numbers with cautious hope. "He won't survive another crash," she told Elena quietly. "If he goes again, that might be it." Elena nodded, wiping her eyes. "Then we don't let him go again." She sat beside Atlas, refusing to leave. As night fell, Mercy General grew quieter. Lights dimmed. Footsteps softened. Rain began again, tapping gently against the windows. Elena's phone buzzed. A message from NICU. "Baby stable for now. Oxygen improving." Elena smiled weakly and leaned closer to Atlas. "You hear that?" she whispered. "He's getting stronger." Atlas didn't move, but his tail twitched once beneath the blanket. Elena laughed softly. "That's my answer." But just then, from down the hall, an alarm sounded. Loud, urgent, unmistakable. Not veterinary. Human. Elena stood instantly, heart dropping as she recognized the code tone echoing through the ICU wing. A nurse ran past, face pale. "Postpartum patient," she said breathlessly. "She's crashing." "Marissa." Elena looked back at Atlas, alive, fragile, then toward the hallway where Marissa lay fighting for her life. She was being pulled in two directions again. And this time she didn't know which heartbeat would stop first. The alarm echoed down the hallway like a siren inside Elena's chest. She didn't think, she moved. Her feet carried her out of veterinary emergency and into the main corridor, scrub still damp, hands still smelling faintly of antiseptic and blood. Nurses sprinted past her, their faces tight with focus and fear. "Room 412, someone shouted. "Postpartum hemorrhage again." "Marissa." Elena pushed harder, lungs burning, every step pulling her farther away from Atlas. She glanced back once, just once, through the glass door of veterinary emergency. Atlas lay motionless beneath blankets, machines humming softly, fighting his quiet battle. "I'll come back," she whispered, not knowing who she was promising. Room 412 was chaos. Blood stained the sheets again, darker this time, heavier. Marissa's skin was gray, her lips barely moving as oxygen hissed through a mask. A doctor pressed hard against her abdomen while another shouted orders. "She's losing pressure fast. Get another unit ready." "Elena," the OB called when she spotted her. "We need hands." Elena was already at the bedside, muscle memory taking over. She pressed where she was told, counted breaths, watched numbers plummet and rise like a cruel game. "Stay with us, Marissa," Elena said firmly, leaning close. "You hear me, you stay." Marissa's eyes fluttered open for half a second. "Atlas," she whispered. Elena swallowed hard. "He's still fighting." Marissa's lips curved faintly, just enough to suggest a smile. "Good," she breathed. Then her eyes rolled back. "BP's tanking," a nurse yelled. "Prep for emergency intervention," the doctor ordered. "Now." The room filled with motion again, fast, sharp, efficient. Elena worked without thinking, hands moving where they were needed, blocking out everything else. Except the thought clawing at the back of her mind. Atlas is alone. Down the hall in veterinary emergency, the fight grew quieter. The vet watched Atlas's monitors with a sinking feeling. His heart rate was holding, but barely. His blood pressure refused to stabilize. "He's tired," the vet murmured to the tech beside her. "He's just tired." Atlas stirred slightly, a low sound escaping his throat, not a bark, not a whine, something in between. His paw twitched beneath the blanket. As if searching. Back in room 412, Elena's arms ached. Sweat dripped down her spine. The doctor cursed under his breath. "She's not responding." Elena felt the weight of that sentence settle in her bones. "We can't lose her," she said, more plea than statement. "We're not done yet," the doctor replied grimly. Minutes blurred, time lost meaning. Then slowly, agonizingly, the numbers shifted. "Pressure coming up," a nurse said, disbelief creeping into her voice. "Hold it," the doctor said, "hold it." Marissa's breathing evened out, shallow but steady. The bleeding slowed to something manageable. Elena sagged slightly, catching herself on the bed rail. "She's stable," the doctor said finally, "for now." Relief hit Elena, so hard her knees nearly buckled. She squeezed Marissa's hand. "You did it," she whispered. "Your son waiting for you." Marissa didn't respond, but her fingers tightened faintly around Elena's. "Alive." Elena didn't wait for permission. She ran. Back through the halls, past staring faces, past whispered conversations. The hospital buzzed with something new now, not panic, not routine. Reverence. People moved quieter, slower, as if they all understood they were standing inside a story larger than themselves. She burst back into veterinary emergency. The vet looked up, and Elena knew instantly. The look was soft, sad. "He's still with us," the vet said gently, "but he's fatting." Elena crossed the room in 3 steps and knelt beside Atlas. His breathing was shallow again, chest barely rising. His eyes were open now, glassy but aware. "I'm here," Elena said quickly, taking his paw. "I'm back." His gaze fixed on her. The monitor ticked slowly, each beat a victory. "You didn't leave," she whispered. "I told you I'd come back." The vet stood quietly nearby. "He's holding on for something," she said. "I've seen it before." Elena swallowed. "He's waiting to know they're safe." As if on cue, Elena's phone buzzed. A message from the NICU. "Mother stable, baby improving, small spontaneous breaths." Elena laughed through tears and leaned down until her face was inches from Atlas's. "They're okay," she said softly. "Both of them, you hear me, they're going to live." Atlas's ears twitched. His tail moved, slow, weak, but unmistakable. The monitor beeped, heart rate climbing just a little. The vet exhaled shakily. "There it is," she murmured. "That's the fight." Evening settled over Mercy General like a held breath. News crews waited outside, lights glaring, voices hushed. Social media flooded with speculation, praise, disbelief. Donations poured in, offers to cover medical bills, veterinary costs, anything. Inside, Elena sat on the floor beside Atlas, refusing to leave again. She spoke quietly to him, about nothing and everything. About the baby's tiny fingers. About Marissa's strength. About how sometimes the world didn't deserve dogs like him. Atlas listened. Hours later, the vet returned with cautious hope in her eyes. His vitals are stabilizing, she said. Not normal, but better. Alina smiled weakly. He just needed to know. The vet nodded. Some beings don't know how to stop caring. Just before midnight, Alina walked to the NICU. Atlas James lay under soft light, breathing with help but fighting on his own now. His chest rose and fell more steadily than before. A nurse smiled when Alina approached. He squeezed my finger, the nurse whispered. Strong little grip. Alina pressed her hand to the glass. Your guardian's still here, she murmured. Then she went upstairs. Marissa slept quietly, color slowly returning to her face. Machines hummed softly instead of screaming. Alina stood at her bedside, exhaustion finally settling into her bones. You sent him, Alina whispered. You trusted him. Marissa didn't wake, but her breathing stayed steady. Alina left the room and leaned against the wall, finally letting herself cry. For the first time since dawn, no alarm sounded. No one ran. But somewhere deep in the hospital, a monitor changed rhythm again, soft, irregular, uncertain. Alina's head snapped up. Her phone buzzed. Veterinary emergency, please come now. Her heart clenched. The fight wasn't over yet. And Atlas was asking, one last time for her to stay. Alina didn't walk this time. She ran. Her shoes slapped against the floor, the sound echoing too loudly in the quiet corridor. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the hospital itself was resisting her movement, slowing her down, forcing her to feel each second as it passed. She burst through the doors of veterinary emergency, breath ragged. The room was dimmer than before. Lights were lowered, voices were hushed. Atlas lay on the table, still beneath a blanket, chest rising and falling in shallow, uneven breaths. The monitor beside him ticked slowly, too slowly. Each beep felt like a question mark. The vet looked up when Alina entered. Her eyes were tired, red-rimmed. He's comfortable, she said softly, but his organs are shutting down. Alina swallowed hard. Is he in pain? No, the vet said, not anymore. Alina crossed the room and knelt beside Atlas. She took his paw, pressing it gently between her palms. I'm here, she whispered, voice breaking. I didn't leave. Atlas's eyes opened slowly. They found her immediately. In that gaze was something Alina had seen only a few times in her career, clarity. Not fear, not confusion, acceptance. You don't have to do anything else, Alina said, tears spilling freely now. You already saved them. Atlas's breathing hitched. A soft sound escaped his throat, not a whine, not a cry. A sigh. Alina leaned closer, resting her forehead against his. I know you were scared, she whispered, but you were so brave. The vet and tech stood back, silent witnesses to something sacred. The monitor slowed again. Beep. Beep. Longer pause. Alina felt Atlas's paw relax in her hands. No, she whispered urgently. Stay just a little longer. She didn't know why she asked. She already knew the answer. The monitor let out a single, continuous tone. Fled. The room went still. The vet stepped forward, checking reflexively, then stopped. She placed a gentle hand on Alina's shoulder. I'm so sorry, she said quietly. Alina bowed her head, a sob tearing free despite every effort to hold it in. She pressed Atlas's paw to her cheek, breathing in the faint scent of rain and antiseptic still clinging to his fur. You were a good boy, she whispered, the best. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Alina straightened slowly. Can I do something? She asked, voice hoarse. The vet nodded, whatever you need. Alina reached for the red pouch, now cleaned, stitched, resting beside Atlas. She opened it carefully and removed the ultrasound photo. She placed it gently against his chest. So you know who you saved, she whispered. The vet's eyes filled with tears. Word spread quietly. A nurse leaned into the hallway, whispering. A doctor stopped mid-step. Conversations paused. The hospital seemed to exhale all at once, a shared grief rippling outward. In the NICU, a nurse felt something shift and looked up at Atlas James's monitor. "He's breathing better," she said softly. "Oxygen saturation just improved." No one said anything, but they all felt it. In room 412, Marissa stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first. She frowned faintly, as if sensing something missing. "Atlas," she whispered. A nurse took her hand. "Your baby's doing well," she said gently. Marissa shook her head weakly. "The other Atlas." The nurse hesitated, heart heavy. "He was very brave," she said carefully. Understanding dawned slowly on Marissa's face. Her lips trembled. "Oh," she whispered, "he waited." Tears slid silently into her hair. By morning, the story was everywhere. A stray dog who walked into a hospital carrying a plea for help. A premature baby saved against impossible odds. A mother who survived because someone believed her dog. Outside Mercy General, people gathered quietly. Flowers appeared near the entrance. Candles flickered despite the daylight. Someone taped a handwritten sign to the glass doors. "Thank you, Atlas." Elena stood just inside, watching. She hadn't slept. Her eyes burned, her body ached, but she felt strangely steady, whole. The hospital administrator approached her carefully. "We'd like to honor him," he said. "A memorial, maybe a plaque." Elena nodded. "He deserves more than that." The administrator smiled softly. "We agree." That afternoon, Elena returned to the NICU. Atlas James slept peacefully now, chest rising and falling with more confidence. His skin was still fragile, still fighting, but stronger. Elena placed a finger gently against the glass. "You have his name," she whispered. "Make it mean something." The baby's tiny hand curled, as if grasping. Elena smiled through tears. In veterinary emergency, Atlas's table stood empty now, cleaned and silent. The vet paused before turning off the lights. "He knew when to stop," she said quietly to Elena. "Not many do." Elena nodded. He wasn't leaving without knowing. As the lights dimmed, the room felt different, not empty. Full. That night, Elena dreamed of rain and running feet, of a German shepherd sitting calmly beneath flickering lights, eyes steady, unafraid. When she woke, there was a strange peace in her chest. Atlas was gone, but what he left behind was everywhere. And the hospital would never be the same again. The morning sun broke over Mercy General, gentle and golden, a stark contrast to the stormy chaos that had begun 3 days earlier. The lobby, once echoing with frantic footsteps and alarms, now felt sacred in its stillness. Nurses moved quietly, doctors whispered to each other, and security guards paused near the automatic doors, a small smile tugging at the corners of their lips. A bronze statue now occupied the center of the lobby. Atlas sat there, head high, chest out, red pouch sculpted across his form, eyes alert as if he were watching over everyone who passed through those doors. A small plaque at the base read, "Atlas Protector Guide Hero." Elena stood before the statue, rain still fresh on the pavement outside from last night's storm. She ran a hand along the smooth bronze, remembering the weight of his paw in hers, the way he had looked at her as if understanding the gravity of the life he carried on his back. His sacrifice had saved a baby and a mother, and in doing so, had saved something else too, faith in the extraordinary bravery of the ordinary. A small crowd had gathered, hospital staff, families, and a few journalists all moved to witness the unveiling. Cameras flashed, capturing the gleaming statue from every angle. Someone whispered, "He's more than a dog, he's a miracle." Elena looked at Marissa, standing beside her now, holding her tiny baby wrapped in soft blue blankets. The little boy yawned and squeezed her finger with the faintest strength. Marissa's eyes glistened, and she whispered a single word. "Atlas." Alina smiled softly. "He's here," she said, "everywhere you need him." Marissa knelt down beside the statue, brushing her fingers across its bronze snout. "I can't believe he did all that just to save us." She looked at her baby, small and fragile but breathing steadily. "He waited for us. He made sure we were okay before he left." Across the lobby, nurses placed small bowls of water and dog treats beneath the statue, honoring him in the way only humans could. Children visiting the hospital pressed their hands against the bronze paw, some whispering quiet thanks. For Atlas, the walls of Mercy General had become a sanctuary, a place where his courage would be remembered forever. Alina's phone buzzed, breaking the quiet. It was a message from the NICU nurse. "Baby is improving, feeding well, vital signs strong. Mom is recovering beautifully." She exhaled slowly, relief washing through her. "He did it," she murmured, voice trembling. "He saved them." Then she turned her attention back to the statue. Somehow she could still feel his presence, the quiet confidence, the unwavering focus, the loyalty that had carried him through impossible odds. For a fleeting second it was as if he blinked at her, ears alert, eyes steady. The hospital administrator approached, smiling softly. "We've had families ask if they can leave flowers here every week," he said. "People want to remember what he did." "They should," Alina replied. "Not just for the baby or the mother, but for all of us, to remind us what courage really looks like." As the day wore on, more staff came to pay their respects. Even those who hadn't been on duty that stormy morning lingered, touched by the story that had already become legend. Nurses whispered quietly about how lucky they had been to witness it, how rare it was to see such devotion, such intelligence, such love in one creature. Marissa stood holding her son as she looked up at Alina. "We want to name him Atlas," she said, voice steady. "Atlas James, in his honor." Alina's chest tightened with emotion. "He would have loved that," she whispered. The baby stirred in Marissa's arms, tiny fingers curling around hers, his breaths deep and steady. The nurse watching over them smiled, shaking her head in disbelief at how resilient life could be when protected by courage and loyalty. Weeks passed. The hospital slowly returned to routine, but the spirit of that morning lingered. Staff spoke of Atlas in hushed tones, recounting the story to new hires, to visitors, to anyone who would listen. Some would laugh, some would cry, all would be inspired. A small group of volunteers began visiting local shelters, inspired by Atlas's story. "If one dog can change everything," they said, "imagine what all of them can do." Alina continued her rounds as usual, but every time she passed the statue she paused. She would brush her hand along the bronze, close her eyes, and whisper quietly, "Thank you for everything." And sometimes, late at night, when the hospital was quiet and the fluorescent lights hummed softly, she thought she heard the faint click of nails on tile, just for a moment, echoing through the halls. She would look up, half expecting to see him, only to find the statue staring back. But it was enough. She knew he was still watching, still protecting. Marissa returned often to the lobby, baby in arms. She would press his tiny hand to the bronze paw, whispering the story so he would know where his name came from, the sacrifice it honored, and the hero who gave everything to save them. The story of Atlas spread far beyond the walls of Mercy General. Local news stations interviewed Alina and Marissa. Social media lit up with tributes, artwork, and videos honoring the dog who had done the impossible. People everywhere were reminded that sometimes heroes come in four-legged bodies, with courage bigger than their size. One rainy morning, months later, Alina paused at the entrance again. The lobby was quiet, the bronze gleaming softly under the morning sun filtering through the windows. A nurse walked by and smiled. "You know, I think he's still here," she said, nodding toward the statue. Alina smiled, feeling the truth in her bones. "I know he is," she said softly. "I know he is." And somewhere in her heart, she could swear she heard a faint, familiar sound. The soft click of nails on tile, calm and deliberate, a heartbeat echoing across the quiet halls of Mercy General. Atlas had left the world, but he had not left them. He never would. The hospital, the baby, the mother, and every soul touched by the story carried him forward. A symbol of courage, loyalty, and the unyielding heart of a dog who refused to leave anyone behind. And in that quiet, golden morning light, Mercy General was never just a hospital again. It was a monument to heroism, sacrifice, and the extraordinary power of one life, even a life carried on 4 paws. The end.